Good morning, everybody. How are you? Okay. So, welcome to episode 1 of Krav and Coffee. My name is Ann Kirk, and I will be your host. Hey T, how are you? So, if you guys can just give me a heads up so I know who's here, that'd be really cool. If you want to remain anonymous, that's also cool. I just want to give everybody a little bit of time. Hey Kim, to come on. Two Kims, yes. It's a beautiful day in Pennsylvania. Dreary and rainy. I'm doing well, T. Thank you. I hope you guys are doing well as well. I can only imagine. You guys are going to be slammed as soon as we can move around again. Terry, I miss you. Aw, Greta. Thank you for watching. So, give everybody another minute or so. Oh, Chrissy Bunting, how are you? Good morning. Chrissy's like my Facebook bestie, whether she knows it or not. Every time Chrissy posts something, I'm like, yes! I feel the exact same way. Please be my friend. Okay, hey Pete. Alright, so I had planned this a little bit differently. All the notifications are streaming across my face and it is distracting me. I thought I'd be able to I thought I would be able to get it onto my computer as well. So I'm gonna like keep going back and forth from notifications to no notifications. Please ask questions, add comments, concerns, other ideas, other perspectives. I want to take this chance where we're not allowed to actually make contact to learn self-defense and talk about everything that happens before the contact occurs, because in my opinion, my humble opinion, that's true self-protection. And it could be because I'm not a prize fighter. It could be that my sparring is nowhere near where I'd like it to be. Neither is my groundwork. So if I needed to fend off an attacker right now, my odds probably aren't the greatest. There is a little bit of grassroots Philly girl in me that would turn on, hopefully. But I don't want to take that chance. So before we jump into the topic, which is the fence, I just want to introduce myself. So for those of you who are tuning in either now or later and you don't know who I am, my name is Ann Kirk. I am a physical therapist by trade, and I just so happened to stumble into Krav Maga, and once I started, I loved it. It made me feel really powerful. It made me feel really aware of what's going on around me. It made me feel like, oh, I can hit pretty hard. That's great. And that sense of, I don't know, swag, I guess, made me feel really good. So that's why I train. I train because I like the advantage that training Krav Maga gives me. With that being said, I knew that I wanted to teach because I watched self-defense seminars. I attended self-defense seminars, and I was like, whoa, that's a pretty impressive thing to be able to do, to teach other people how to feel as awesome as I felt. So I started taking some instructor classes, and then the imposter syndrome started. It was like, well, my reason for teaching, my feeling from Krav is different than other people's. Does that make me wrong or not able to teach? I was not so concerned with winning the fight. From the very beginning, I was concerned with how do I avoid the fight. Mainly because I was a single mom for 5 years, and my daughter was with me all the time. She was my little shadow. So I really didn't want to fight in front of my daughter. So I was like, what am I doing? Am I wrong? I want to be good at this. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I put on my best resting bitch face, and I walked around like I was super tough and thought that that was the way to do it. I had to present this bigger than life, stronger than everyone else bravado for people to take me seriously, for me to take me seriously as a self-defense instructor. And that's what I did. And I did it pretty well. I think so. I get a lot of feedback on the way I walk and the way my face just rests. So I did that for a little bit, and then I started working at the Domestic Violence Center in Chester County. And at first it was great. They welcomed me in. The women were awesome. They participated in my drills. They listened to me as I spout off my statistics about situational awareness and all that fun stuff. And then the questions started. What would you do in this situation? And this woman who looked like a boxer, who lived in the Bronx, showed me that she had been pinned down, knees straight, hands against her chest, it was complete control as well as being choked. And I'm like, whoa. Well, there's a Krav Maga defense for a choke, and there's a Krav Maga defense for someone mounting you, but you wouldn't be in that position, you would be in this position. I don't know. So at that point, that was kind of the tipping point for me. I'm like, do I keep up this bravado as I'm this tough person, I know Krav Maga, I could teach anybody how to defend themselves, insert combat sport here. If you train with us, you will survive any vicious attack. All you need to know is this one technique, and you'll survive. Do I want to keep up that facade, or do I want to be honest and say, I have no idea? So luckily, honesty and sincerity is kind of my jam. So I said to her, I'm really sorry. I don't know how to defend against that. And I broke it apart, and I'm like, well, in this situation, you could do this, and if your leg was here, and if their weight was here, you're in a fight for your life now. And she's like, yeah, I know I was. And I was like, yeah, you were. Why am I teaching you? What do you have to teach me? And that's when teaching women self-protection became more of a crusade, for lack of a better word, for me, than a job or a social media persona, because I needed to buck the status quo. This woman's story, this woman's insight needed to be taught to everyone who wanted to learn self-protection, because that was real life. That was a true experience. And so anytime you go against the consensus, anytime you see that status quo and you're like, no, I don't want to do it that way, it's hard because you're reinventing the wheel almost. And I made some mistakes, and I learned from those mistakes, and I built from those mistakes. And the reason I was able to do that is because I was surrounded by people who were much smarter than me and who had experiences that were way different than mine. And I listened to them, and I trusted, and I verified, and I took with a grain of salt, and I took what I thought I'd be able to use and left what I couldn't. And from that, I kind of developed these principles that I use when I teach. And the cool thing is that when you're very general, when you have a principle, you can apply that over and over and over into many different demographics, even if you've never been in that demographic. I've never been the victim of domestic violence. However, because I've listened to the stories and worked with people who have survived domestic violence, I don't have to pretend that I know what that's like. I can say, based on what I've learned from these survivors, this is something you can apply to your situation. And the biggest principle, the biggest take-home message that I took from them is avoidance and boundary setting and listening to your gut. Being able to trust your gut, let's put it that way. I think a lot of us listen to our gut, we just don't trust it. But if we can trust what our gut is telling us and kind of put ourselves first, then we don't have to fight. How about that? I own a martial arts school with my husband where we teach people how to fight. And I'm here talking to you about how not to fight. So that's a story for another day. Learning Krav Maga, training Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai is the lifeblood of myself and many of my friends. But it's not because we're afraid. It's because we enjoy that training. So let's think about what that means, trusting your gut and protecting yourself instead of fighting your way out of a horrible situation. There's a gentleman named Jeff Thompson, and he was a bouncer. He's kind of like a self-help guru in the United Kingdom, over in England. And he's done multiple series, wrote multiple books on fighting, how to fight. Fighting on the ground, fighting from the clinch, fighting as an animalistic thing. And at the end of the day, the most important thing that he talks about, the most important thing that he wants people to understand is that the physical altercation is not where you want to be. You want to be so aware of what's going on around you, you never have to get to that physical altercation. Fighting your way out of that is exhilarating, right? Being able to win, being able to succeed, that would probably feel great. I don't know. I've never been there. I've never had to do it. But he also mentions, people die in physical altercations. People go to jail from physical altercations. If you can avoid that fight, then you can avoid all the aftermath that comes with it. So he talks about the fence. So the fence is super simple, and just like many truths in our lives, they're usually very simple and then we complicate them. So the fence, boom, hands are out. My fence will look different than yours, it looks different than his. But the fence, the way we teach it, the way we explain it, the way that we understood it from Jeff Thompson, is the fence is a non-telegraphic. So I'm not showing you what I'm doing, non-aggressive, so it doesn't look like we're going to get into a fight, but it's essentially my fighting stance. And what it does is it controls the space. That's huge. You need to control the space. Once someone has closed that distance, once you've allowed that person to close the distance, then the fight has come to you. So what he talks about is how you can keep this physical boundary between you and whatever the issue is, And that can help set you up for better success when you need to attack first. I'm going to take that even a step further because he talks about being aware of your surroundings as well. What if our fence was a mental fence, was a boundary that we've set in our mind to be aware of what's going on around us? And if we can see something that's far, far away from us, and we can feel what that does to our spidey senses, can we avoid the need to use the physical boundary? I think we could. I think that's one of the biggest things about protecting yourself. And luckily, one of the blessings of this quarantine shutdown is that we're able to identify and kind of delve deeper into the non-physical side of self-protection, and that's the mental game. The mental game we can sit and talk about for hours. We won't do that today, but we will. We'll do that weekly. We'll keep coming back to how can we mentally protect ourselves. So when I teach that the fence is my boundary, but it's not so much here. It's very much here. So growing up, my father was an undercover narcotics police officer in North Philly. Yeah. I was very protected and very structured, and the security was pretty top notch. But the one thing that always stuck with me is that he would always say, under my roof, it's my rules. So even when I tried to buck the system, that was always like, see rule 1, my roof, my rules. So when I teach, that's what I think about with the fence. And I say that to the people in my class. It's like, if you're under my roof, then you're under my rules. And my roof can extend as far as my eye can see. I don't have to wait until you're in my house, right? You're in my space. And I need to identify whether or not I necessarily want what you bring to my front door. So let me think about what's around me. Identifying a baseline. What does it normally look like when you walk out of your door in the morning is the first step. Because if you don't know that someone is under your roof that shouldn't be there, then what are you going to do about it? If you're unaware of it, if you can't tell that something's off because you never really knew when everything was on, you can't protect yourself against that. So let's think about that first and foremost. We do always kind of think about that, right? This isn't a new line of thought, and this isn't paranoia. What this is being present. Who lives on your block? Do you know your neighbors? What cars do they drive? What friends do they have? When you go out for dinner, what do you expect to see when you get to that restaurant? What do you expect the menu to be? Right? Just simple things like that are so not what you think of when it comes to self-protection, but it is. It's just not something we talk about as much. So for me, I'm allergic to almonds. So when I go out to dinner or if I go out to eat, I'm very aware of what the menu is. Because if I eat an almond, then I need to go to the hospital, right? It's all those safety precautions that we do without even thinking about it. When you get into your car, you put on your seatbelt. You're not like, oh, I'm going to get into an accident today. I better get my safety belt on. No, you put your safety belt on because just in case something were to go wrong, you're a little bit more prepared. You adjust your mirrors so you can see what's around your vehicle, right? So we all do this naturally to keep ourselves safe. Why can't we do that with our mental boundaries? Why can't we do that with our emotional boundaries? So when it comes to women's self-defense in particular, we're not necessarily our biggest risk, put it this way, is not the boogeyman in the parking garage. And that's a risk, don't get me wrong, that they exist. But more often than not, it's someone that you know. It's someone that you've identified in your surroundings, and you've okayed them to be there. So if you've okayed them to be there, then how did they hurt you? Sometimes people can use manipulation, people can use guilt, people can use emotion to almost hide what it looks like to be the bad guy or be the bad girl. And that's where that mental fence comes in. Okay, so we've identified our big surroundings, everything's okay. Someone comes in and decides that they might need to isolate you from your friends in order to get to know you a little bit better or to manipulate you a little bit more. So they start planting some ideas in your head that, oh, your friends are, they're so great, they're so awesome, but they seem a little immature. You seem a little bit more, bigger than that. Almost like you're going places and they're kind of stuck. I just assumed you'd be friends with people that, would challenge you, make you better. And you're like, yeah, that sounds right. I should, challenge myself a little bit more. So you start to hang out with people who challenge you and not your friends who make you feel good, right? Or probably do challenge you, but you've just kind of been talked into a circle of, oh, I need new friends. That's isolation. That's how a processed predator gets you to a point where you probably don't think you need to fight back. You don't need to keep your fence up. You allow those hands to come down. So I think the biggest take-home message from that manipulation story is be confident in your decisions. Be confident in what your gut has told you. If you have a group of friends that you love and you adore, don't let someone come in and be like, well, they're not good enough for you. You should have other friends. You're like, oh, well, thank you. I love my friends. And yeah, they're not perfect, and neither am I. But I'll accept some new friends. Like, I don't have a quota. I can't only have like 3 friends. I can have as many friends as I want to. And be okay with that. That right there is your friends. You controlled the distance. If that behavior is inappropriate, someone trying to manipulate you to isolate, then you've kind of just tapped it out a little bit. Like, ooh, stay in your lane a little bit. I need to control this. My friends, my home, what makes me feel safe. I don't mind adding, but we don't need to necessarily subtract. Right? Does that make sense? So it's that inner confidence. It's that listening to what your gut is telling you. It's being okay with bucking the status quo. See? It all comes back around again. It's always about building that idea that what you're doing makes sense to you. That you don't have to necessarily make sense to other people. So the fence is great for physical altercations. Jeff Thompson, I recommend, if you Google it, YouTube, it's an hour-long tape. It's his entire tape. You don't even have to purchase it, which is a little crazy. But you can listen to him talk about the fence and how it works in that fighting scenario. You can come once we're released from quarantine and come in and try it for yourself. See what it's like. See, this is why training is so important, because you get to test out your boundary setting, whether it be mental or whether it be physical. And a community of people who are in the same boat. Like, oh yeah, I want to see how this works. Let's try. Let's see how we can make this work. I'm going to push your buttons. I'm telling you, I'm going to push your buttons. So you can practice being like, whoa, stay in your lane. I'm cool over here. Don't disrupt my peace. Does that make sense? So Krav Maga is so much more than hitting. Krav Maga is so much more than being physically in shape to be able to defend yourself. We're not MMA fighters. At least I'm not. If I have anyone watching who's an MMA fighter, very cool. I'd love to be an MMA fighter in another life. But those weren't the cards I was dealt. But that doesn't mean I can't defend myself. That doesn't mean that I have to go to the gym to work out and get in shape before I go to a Krav Maga class and learn how to defend myself, how to set my boundaries. Does that make sense? So everyone can defend themselves. If you want to learn how to defend yourself, you can start with the practice of observing your baseline. So that would be your homework for this upcoming week. All you need to do is observe what's around you. If you're dying in the house and you need to get out, go for a walk. Identify what's there. From simple things. Where's the closest mailbox? Are the street signs covered by the trees that are blooming? Are there stop signs that might be a little bit covered by low-hanging branches there? Is there a new pothole in the road? Is there a fixed pothole in the road? Things of that nature that can help you, when you go to your one trip to the grocery store, so you can be safe. It's the same idea. As you walk around, you can identify things in your environment that could either be good or bad. Is there, a dark corner at the train station by your house that if you were waiting for the train, you really wouldn't want to stand in? Because if things were to go awry, that's the corner it would go awry in. Is there, I'll give you a story. Let's put it this way. So I went to a neighborhood family-owned deli because I'm really big into giving back to family-run businesses right now because we've had so many people help us. Yay! And as I was waiting in line, they sell beer and alcohol at this deli, and they sell singles. So you can just make a 6-pack, make a 4-pack, and then go. And I mean, most grocery stores do that now too. Well, someone had walked in, and it's kind of hard to figure out, from body language now because everybody's so covered and really kind of keeping to themselves and keeping that 6-foot distance, which was great. And he reached in and he grabbed a beer. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got you. And then twisted the cap off the beer cap went flying, and he just started drinking his beer. At first, I'm like, what? I'm like, that's nowhere near appropriate behavior. Because I'm a rule follower, and God forbid, you start eating your snack or drinking your snack before you pay for it. But it was alcohol, so it made me a little bit more nervous. And I was concerned. Something in me went, this is wrong. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm allowing myself to identify that, not worry about being judged. So it's not like I stared him down and I yelled at him for being inappropriate. I didn't engage. But what I did do was turned so I could see him while I was waiting in line. So instead of having my back to him, even though he was about 12 feet away from me because there was a person in between us, instead of just turning a blind eye to it and just being like, oh, he was dicey, but I'm not going to keep an eye on him, I took it upon myself to maintain my fence. And I maintained my fence by turning sideways so that if anything were to happen, I'd be able to see it out of the corner of my eye. I could see the reflection in the alcohol cases, in the refrigerator cases, and I can still keep an eye on, my spot in line. I looked for my exits. I looked for things that would get in the way of my exits. I took my hands out of my pockets. Things that just would set me up for better success if, God forbid, that inappropriate behavior turned into an inappropriate action. I put my fence up. I didn't engage. I didn't escalate. I didn't be like, I wasn't like, oh, I know Krav Maga. I can't wait to use it. I was like, oh, I've trained with partners who have whooped my butt. I don't know what level of crazy that guy is. And if we fight, I don't want to get my butt whooped. I want to get out of here. I want to be safe. I want to get home to my family. So, just practicing that is something you can do, man, woman, child. You know, while we're not able to train, while we're not able to test those boundaries in the classroom, we can test those decision-making skills in real life. So, now, was this guy bad? I don't know. Was he just, you know, oh, I have to wait in line for my order, so I might as well drink a beer while I'm there? Hey, that sounded that sounded like a pretty good idea to me. You know, at least he wasn't on his phone getting, you know, germs all over. But I didn't know. And I wasn't going to wait to find out. I made a decision. No harm, no foul. I didn't hurt his feelings, and he didn't hurt me. And I'm a pretty important person. So I'm glad. I'm glad I stood up for myself. So, all right. I've been talking for a little bit. I'm going to go back and see any comments here. Nope. Good. I'm glad I didn't miss any comments. If you have any questions, if you have anything to add, please feel free. I'll tell you, just talking is really hard for me. I've always been a mover. My background is, like I said in the beginning, physical therapy. Before physical therapy, I was a dancer. Before Krav, I was in the gym throwing kettlebells around. You know, it's not in my nature to sit and talk. It's even harder for me to sit and lecture because I know I don't know it all. And I look forward to finding out what I don't know. And the only way to do that is to have a conversation. The only way to do that is to find some place to train where you're not the best. The only way to do that is to take classes from people and learn from other instructors who've been doing it longer and have had different experiences. So for me to just sit and look at myself and see the comments is not my comfort zone, but it's the opportunity that we have now to really have a conversation about how to protect yourself, and to show everyone that you can learn self-defense. You don't have to be the biggest, baddest, toughest person in the room to defend yourself. You can be the most aware person in the room. Alrighty. All right, guys. Well, episode 1 of Krav and Coffee. Oh, I made all this coffee and I didn't drink any. See, this isn't good. You guys have to talk to me. Leave me, comments so I can drink my coffee, or else it's just Ann talking and not Krav and Coffee. So, this is episode 1. I hope you enjoyed it. It will be saved to the Kirk's Martial Arts and Krav Maga Facebook page. I'll also share it on my personal page and on my my company's Facebook page, which is Principal Movement. So you can have it as a reference. You can also send, questions. Oh, good, Chrissy. I'm glad you liked it. And Jonna, man, there are some heavy hitters in the room right now. I have goosebumps. Thank you guys for watching, and that's I challenge you if that works. I challenge you all this week to just set a baseline. Look around and figure out what your baseline is. Now, of course, this is going to be a very different baseline than our normal one, but it's the baseline we're living in now. And sometimes change is hard. most of the time change is hard. And it's very tempting to just kind of tuck your head into the sand and ignore that change because it's not something that's comfortable. So I'm asking you, be present in the life that's happening now, and go out there and see what's going on around you and decide how that environment is going to interact with you. You get to control that. It's pretty empowering. So, and I don't like that word, empowering. It always makes me a little angry, but that's self-empowering, I guess. So, all right, everybody. Hi, Jeff from Plymouth, Mass. Nice to say hi. Ernie says hi too, Jeff. T, thank you. Thanks for watching. Yes, situational awareness is number one. It really is. Paul, Heather, Greta, I thanked you before. Terry, Kim, Ernie, thank you all for watching. I don't know if you guys can see or not, but this is an Ethiopian opal necklace from Greta's company called Hawk Couture. I don't get paid to say that. I'm just kidding. She doesn't sponsor Krav and Coffee. But if you guys are looking for Mother's Day presents, I know that it's tough because our shopping is limited, but Greta makes beautiful handmade jewelry that she can ship out, and a percentage of her profits goes to domestic violence survivors. So if you are looking for a Mother's Day present, check out Hawk Couture. All right. So have a great day. Happy Sunday. I'm sorry. Heather asked the question. Sorry, Heather. I don't see it.
She said,
I'm like scared. See.
If your daughter was with you in the deli, how would you have handled that?
Oh, if my daughter was with me in the deli. Great question. See, luckily this isn't my first rodeo. I know Isabella has had a very different type of life, I think, being the daughter of me and Ernie Kirk. She sees things a little bit differently. So if Izzy were with me, I would have done the same thing. I would have turned sideways, and I would have had her, I would have put myself between the guy who opened the beer and Izzy, which would in turn actually put her closer to the door. And Izzy's at a point now where it's not scary to her anymore to be perceptive of our surroundings. So she probably would have seen it as well. I would have made eye contact with her and basically said, if anything should happen, there's the door. I'll meet you back at the car. It's a tough thing with kids, and we can make that definitely an episode of situational awareness with kids. Another friend of mine, Kelly Sire, she owns the Diamond Arrow Group. Check out her stuff as well. She's also a mom, and she's up in Minnesota, and she's the self-awareness or situational awareness guru. She talks a lot about her perspective on how to teach kids situational awareness. What I teach Izzy is basically that mental fence. And one of the small things that we play when we started playing, because learning through games is it kind of sticks more, is that Isabella, anytime she goes somewhere, finds her exits. And we start with that very small. If you needed to get out of here, how would you do it? And it's something that isn't foreign because, they do fire drills and everything at school. So, I use that. If there were a fire and you needed to get out of here, how would you do it? And we start with just normal doors, unless she comes up with other things, a window or anything. And then once she got really good at finding all of her exits, Then we started talking about which exit would be better. Is there one that, even if one is closer, is there, a higher risk of getting hurt going through the closer one? Which exits are less likely to be used by everyone? If there's a lot of people in the establishment, you don't want to get stampeded, especially as a small child. Is there a better exit than the one that you can see? Maybe through the kitchen if you're at a restaurant, maybe through a retail store if you're at a mall, out their back exit. So to pontificate on your question, if I had Izzy with me, Isabella being the person that she is, we would have had a very short conversation. I would have placed her physically on the other side of me, and kept her close, made sure I could still feel her next to me. If I was with, let's say, my niece, who's 4, who's not been raised in this type of environment, I again would have put myself between her and the threat. I would have made sure to hold her hand, and have her, transition her hand from mine to like holding onto my pants, so that way my hands were free and I could still feel her attached to me. And just keep her there, keep my eyes up, maybe start talking to her about I Spy. I Spy with my little eye, a door handle. Where do you see a door handle? Or, things of that nature to kind of identify things that an exit would look like. So I would be helping her identify the exits without specifically saying, there's the exit. If something were to go down, get out of it. And then, of course, if I felt very uncomfortable and kind of outside of my element, then I would leave. Go get a sandwich, wait in my car until that person leaves, or go get a sandwich somewhere else. Live to fight another day. Live to learn another day. There's a great saying from Pavel Tatsuland, who is the owner of Strong First, which is a kettlebell organization. He says, live to swing another day. So there's always, you don't have to stick with it. It's not that old idea of, I've made my bed, now I need to lie in it. You're allowed to change your mind. And that goes with that recovering perfectionist attitude that I have now, that it's okay for me to change my mind. And I have a couple more stories about that too, but I've been talking to you guys for 45 minutes. Wow. Thank you, 27 of you who are watching it live. That's huge for little old me. And if you guys watch the replay and you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments below, and I'll check back and make sure that can you put the name of your friend in Minnesota in the group? Yes. Yep. So everybody, I will put Greta's website down, and I will put the Diamond Arrow group down as well. Kelly's a pretty awesome person. There aren't many people that I can just pick up the phone and call without knowing anything about them and have a 2-hour conversation and get along. I'm not one for small talk. And there was no small talk with Kelly. It was all, yes, I know, right? That makes such good sense. That's amazing. It was like kindred spirits. So, I mean, that helps. That helps when you're bucking the system and going against the status quo, right? Finding other people to validate your thought process. So if you need someone to validate your decision to look around, read the situation, and remove yourself from it, you got it. I'll validate you any day. All right, everybody. Happy Sunday. Have a good week. Keep your eyes open. Look around and be present. See you next Sunday.